Welcome to the Raise Your Bars podcast, where it's all about elevating your life one step at a time. With your hosts, Chris Baker and Al Rattan. Together, we're here to guide you through the transformative journey of self-improvement and success. Have you ever wondered what behaviors and actions you need to change to achieve the results and success you desire in life? Well, you're in the right place. Each episode, we dive deep into the strategies, mindset shifts, and practical steps you can take to raise your bars. From personal development to professional growth, Chris and Al share their expertise, experiences, and the occasional tough love, all designed to empower you to reach your full potential. So, whether you're looking to make a big change or simply fine-tune your path to success, grab a seat and let's raise those bars together. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Chris Baker and Al Rattan.
And here we are with another episode of the Raise Your Bars podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Chris Baker. Chris, how is life in Florida? All recovered from the hurricane in your area anyways? I know some other areas are obviously impacted greater, but you're doing good there?
Yeah, no, we as I say, fortunately we escaped the worst of it, which is good.
Yes.
And we've been back in, I mean, since then we've been like sunny every day, and it's a little bit chilly at the moment. It's like in the 60s in the evening and 70s during the day. So I did actually have to wear a jacket last night when I walked the dog. So yeah, I appreciate
my sympathies.
Yeah,
my sympathies.
I appreciate that.
Yes. If you're tuning in for the first time, Chris is in Florida and I'm in Manitoba, Canada. So the leaves are falling off the trees and it's dipping down to around 0 Celsius at night. We had frost on the grass the other day. So anyways, that time of the year is coming.
Yes.
So we're kind of excited about this. We've got, if you don't know this, Chris Baker is a published author. He wrote a book a few years back called 10. If you're watching the video, by the way, go to our YouTube channel, search Raise Your Bars on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Please. We really appreciate that. You can also watch us talking on our podcast there. But he wrote this book a few years back called 10 Steps to Freedom. Yeah. And then the subtitle is your 10-step guide to living the life you deserve. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the introduction of this book on today's podcast episode. And then we're going to dive into the 10 steps over the next 10 weeks and really dissect them. And hopefully you get some tips, tricks, and tools out of this series to really help you live the life you deserve.
Yeah.
And so, Chris, maybe just before we even jump into the introduction, what made you think of where did the title come from?
So I wrote this book, I think it was 2018. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 2018. And it was a time in my life where I turned 50 in 2016, and that was really when I started looking and saying, who am I and what do I stand for? What do I want to achieve? And really started looking at myself. And that's when I started into the personal growth journey, right? So 2016 was when I came across Simon Sinek and his Golden Circle, and that ignited something in me, and his books Find Your Why and Start With Why. And then in 2017, I joined the Maxwell Group, as a certified teacher and trainer, which is when I met yourself. And then we went into the Think and Grow Rich study, which again, when we really got to know each other more, and the 12-month intensive, which was in 2018. And I think it was at that point that I was like, I was reflecting back on my life. And, I'd had ups and downs as most of us had, but I was living a life by default, not by design. And as I went through this sort of journey of self-awareness and realization and reflection, it was what do I want? And I realized I wanted a life of financial freedom. I wanted a life of freedom where, you can choose who you associate with, what you do, when you do it, and so on and so forth. Right. So really that. And so I started looking at my life and how I've been living it, and then relating it to lessons we'd learned from John Maxwell and Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich and so on. And I came up with the quote at the start, which actually in the book it bookends the bookends the book, right? So it's at the start and the finish. And the quote was, "Are you happy living under the average limitations imposed on you by other people, or are you ready to rise to the greater expectations of your inner self?" And I say it's a quote by me, right? It came about through one of our calls on Think and Grow Rich. And it was, what do I want?
Right.
And I realized that I, like many other people, had been living under those limitations and the average limitations that were imposed by others, and by our subconscious, that is a result of what other people have told us and what we've experienced. And I didn't want to do that anymore.
Right. Right. And I think you need that awakening in life to make the change that you want to change. And I think a lot of people probably, and even like you, and you talk about this a little bit, didn't really believe you deserved a
Right.
different life than than the hand you had been dealt. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we get trapped into that by our circumstances, by our life experiences, by maybe the career we ended up falling into versus maybe the one we desired.
Hmm.
And then we settle and we coast and we
Yeah.
drift through life, and it's not necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily great, and you just sort of exist.
Yeah.
And I know, your story mirrors mine a little bit, where going through life and then deciding that, hey, I've always wanted to learn more and grow more, and I've been very much of a book reader for many years of my life, but really getting back into reading books in sort of the early 2000s, and then finding the Maxwell team in 2016,
Hmm.
and then growing from there and meeting different coaches that we've worked with, and making some amazing friends, and really sort of discovering my why and my purpose. But I think too, we can even take that another step, saying that we have our purposes in life, both you and I. However, like, I think it's a divine encounter that we met, and now we're like, because our purposes are very aligned, and
Hmm.
we're moving forward with the program we've created with Raise Your Bars, still doing our own things
Yeah.
with our separate businesses. However, the partnership has been um, extremely fulfilling for me. And I know
Hmm.
we've talked about this before. We both really do lift each other up and
Yeah.
help each other become better than we could be on our own.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% true. And it's interesting because I say this year I've actually been contemplating with updating this book, right? Because I say it was written 6 years ago.
Yeah,
And in that last 6 years, a lot of positive growth has happened to me that really leads on from this, and it leads on from the 10 steps that we talk about in here. They're actually now coming to fruition, and it's that I think is an important thing to add into this. So I'm looking at doing a 10 steps of freedom 2.0, or whatever, the fifth
right.
anniversary, sixth anniversary edition, whatever you want to call it. um because I want to show that, again, things take time.
Exactly. And the thing is you have grown and progressed. And John Maxwell talks about this with his Developing the Leader Within You book and Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. He says when he wrote the first edition, he was here. And folks, I'm putting my hand sort of at the bottom of the screen here. But over time, he grew,
Yeah.
but his book stayed there. So he had to update it.
Right.
And he came up with a Developing Leader Within You 2.0, and it was about 80% new content. Because again, if we are choosing to be on this personal growth type of journey, and I know those words get thrown around a lot,
Right.
personal
Right.
growth and personal development, stuff like that. But if you're on this journey of growing yourself and being better today than you were yesterday, and striving to achieve more down the road, then guess what? You are going to grow. You are going to be different than what you were even 6 years ago, 2 years ago. I
Yeah.
know I'm different than I was 2 years ago.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. And we've we've said it before on the podcast, and I've said it to other people, that we do the podcast to help other people, but in all honesty, it benefits us too, right? Because we learn something from every podcast episode. And that would be something, again, for the listeners. I encourage you to look at everything that happens to you in life every day. Do some self-reflection at the end of the day. And what did you learn today?
What can you learn?
Right?
Yeah.
Good or bad? Right? What did you learn?
Exactly.
And how can you apply that learning? Right? Because that's how you continue to grow. And we just can be, Al and I will be talking about stuff, and suddenly something pops in and we go, man, that's a really good idea, right? Or we build on it, and together we build on it, and it could be something that's to do with our actual main jobs. It could be something that's to do with Raise Your Bars, or it could be something to do with personal life, whatever.
Yeah.
But we always should be looking for growth. We always should be looking for movement forward. And I think that, again, is the sort of the cornerstone of the book, is that what we need to do is be intentional about it, and we need to choose that life. We all have the power to choose, but I didn't realize that until I sat down and started working through this. I thought, hey, we've got the hands that we dealt, and that's it, right? Well, guess what? You can fold them and take another set of hands, right?
Yeah. I've got a good job. I've got a satisfactory life. I love my family, which are all great things. However, if you were designed for more, or have within you, like what you talk about in here, is the dream. And I want to kind of just touch on a few things. There's so much good stuff, just even in the introduction, folks. So if you go to Amazon, pick up this book, order a copy, and follow along with us as we're talking about it. But, I think that when you discover that there's this much, that more in you, you're really doing yourself and the world at large a disservice by not living that out. And we've heard the thing before, how many unwritten songs are in the cemetery, how many unwritten books are in the cemetery. And that's sad and tragic that the world lost out on what you could give them. And it may not be the world, you may not be on stages or writing books that are going to sell 10 million copies, but your community, your family, your workplace could benefit so much from you reaching your fullest potential.
And I'll say, again, we there was, at the same time as I was doing this, I had an online radio show, right? An internet radio show. And I tagged it with the line of, like, don't live in fear of failure, live in fear of regret. And you've talked before about the regret weighs in tons, right? You'll know your exact saying, but that's really what I don't want people to do. I don't want to get to the end of your life and think, what if, or if only. And I wrote this book purely, yes, to try and help other people, not to sell like millions of copies and loads of money. I didn't do it for that. The other reason I did it was to get all of this stuff out of my head and down on paper,
right?
Because then that releases space for growth, right? And I think that's a key point of it, because until that, I was like compartmentalizing all this stuff, and I'm an open, no pun intended, but an open book in this book, right? I share things that I wouldn't naturally have shared, and I'm vulnerable with it. Again, not for any reason other to say that, hey, we've all got stuff going in our lives, right?
Exactly.
And it's okay.
Well, I think vulnerability helps people relate to you, because we all have gone through stuff, and maybe some of us aren't brave enough to share that yet in our life or in our journey. But you don't know what sharing your story, your pain, your past could do in a positive way to affect somebody else. So you talk a lot about this, about dreams, and just even in the introduction about living the dream, and you share a lot about Walt Disney and your journey to where you are now. But there's a couple of things that I just wanted to pull out here. And Chris, if you're 26, 27, 28, and 29, and just a few points on here that you talk about the dream. And this, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that affects people negatively when they go to express their dream to a loved one or a friend. And that is other people saying you cannot do it. And you ask the question, how many times has someone told you that you're crazy for wanting to attempt something?
Yeah.
So what would your thoughts and advice be to somebody that has said, hey, guess what? This is what I'm going to do. I really feel like I'm excited about it. this is what I want. This is my dream. I believe in this. And somebody shoots you down. How do you deal with that as an individual?
So there's so much to unpack here, right? I think if you go back to the beginning, when you look at that dream, and again, what I know now, I didn't know, early in my life. But one of the things I would think about is really think about that dream and think about your purpose and your passion and why is it so important to you? What will it not only what will it look like if you live in that dream, but what will it feel like? Right? What
Right.
will it mean to you? What will it mean to other people? What purpose is it serving you and the world or whatever, right? So think about that and really embrace that. And if it doesn't ignite something passionate within inside you and excite you, it probably isn't your dream anyway, right? But if it does that and other people knock it down, I would say consider who it is that's knocking it down.
Right.
And what
Look
I
at their
mean by
life maybe a little bit, not in a
right,
judgmental way, but just sort of measure where they're at, look for the fruit of their labor, so to
exactly.
speak.
It's be conscious of who you listen to. All right. So let me give you an example, right? If I wanted to learn Spanish, right, would I take advice from someone who can't speak Spanish?
That would be
And
insanity.
exactly, would I listen to them when they say, "Oh, listen, I don't think your accent is right. I don't think you got the right intent, and you're never going to do that." Or would I ask somebody who speaks Spanish, who can help me and give me advice and knows what they're talking about?
Right.
Right now, if that person says, Chris, honestly, we've worked together for a year on this and you're not getting it. I don't think it's Spanish is right. I would listen to them, right? The person that can't speak Spanish and has got no idea what they're doing, whatever they say, to be honest, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got to pick and choose who it is you listen to
It's,
and
it's,
what their qualifications are, right?
it's really good advice. So actually I have a question then for my own behalf then, because
Mm.
I have I've had people in my life where I've gone to them excited with the dream, with the vision, and you get oh, okay, right? And they don't catch the excitement that you have,
Mhm.
which honestly, with my personality style, right? It's important. I like to be
Right.
liked,
Yeah.
right? I like to be liked.
Yeah.
I like to be popular. And all of a sudden I start doubting myself that is this really my dream or my vision or where I'm supposed to be headed because, oh, a close friend or somebody, a relative didn't share the same excitement as I did in that.
Right.
What would you do in a situation like that?
Again, I would go back and reflect on it, right? And
Mhm.
say, is it them or is it you? Right? Is it and when I say is it you, is it your idea? Is it your dream that's wrong? Or are you listening to the wrong person? Right? Let me give you there's a real life example that of Walt Disney, and I think I share it in the book actually. But it was when Walt Disney wanted to, um, he had the idea of producing the full length feature film of Snow White as a cartoon.
Right.
And this was back in the mid 1930s, 35 ish, I think. Right. So, gosh, 90 years ago.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy, eh?
at the time, nobody had done a full length cartoon,
Mhm.
and people were saying, You're crazy. Nobody is going to sit for 80 minutes, 90 minutes and watch a cartoon, and it will make you go bankrupt.
Right.
Um, so he had that dream, he had that idea, and in his mind, it was wonderful, right?
Mhm.
But when you just tell people what it is, they knock it down. And unfortunately, that's society, right? We put people up on a pedestal, and what do we want to do? We want to knock them down. You see it all of the time, right? So what Walt Disney did is he got all his Imagineers together, and he took them all out for dinner. Gave them all, at the time it was 50 cents, which sounds bizarre, right? And they had change after having dinner and dessert. but he took them out for dinner and he went back
Went
and
for
he
lunch
said,
today. It was $23 after tip. Just for
yeah. So he brought them back and he sat them down, and for 3.5 hours, he acted out himself the whole story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
wow.
Right, so much so that, and what happened? The Imagineers, the animators, they were animators at the time, not Imagineers, but they got so engrossed in it, and they could see his passion, they could see his energy. They started
Right.
to believe it, and they designed it, right, and they designed this feature film.
He
And at the
sold the
time,
dream.
it cost like $500,000, right? Now, when you think about a dinner was less than 50 cents and this cost $500,000, people were like, this is going to send you bankruptcy. You're going to go bust. But in its first year, it grossed $8.5 million. That was his dream,
That
right?
is amazing.
But so
Um,
what he did is he got people to buy into it through his passion, because he knew that it was what he wanted to do, and he knew that it could be a success. All he needed to work out was how is he going to get that across to other people. So that's what I would say with anybody. If you've got it and it means enough, go
do
for it.
I just Googled that really quickly. $1 million in 1935, $500,000 in 1935 is about $23 million in today's money. Or
Right.
sorry, my mistake. $230 million in today's money.
Crazy, right?
$500,000 in 20. So in 1935, he risked what would be equivalent to $235
Yeah.
million today. So
On a
okay,
dream.
we're for his dream. So
Yeah.
we're already at 20 minutes, so we're over our normal time. But there's really, again, we just barely scratched the surface of the introduction of this book. But so I want to just give the people the four things that you talk about in here in this section. The next one, just really quick, but I want to focus on one and just spend a couple minutes on it. Okay. Giving into past experiences. So Chris says the experience of unpleasant disappointments, hurts, which cause people to stay in their comfort zone. I think a lot of people get trapped there. But accepting average, I want to spend a few minutes there just as we wrap up. The last one is having low confidence. I've experienced that myself in my life. But let's just, as we wrap up, let's just talk about accepting average. And you say settling for what we have is another sign of wanting to stay in our comfort zone. Never settle for what we have.
Yeah. I think that's, again, it's easy to say, it's more difficult to do, right? Because you will get knocked back, you will get criticized, you know, people would tell you, like, you know, when we're kids, we've got wild imaginations and we think we can do anything. And honestly, we can. We're all born with that creative, wild imagination. But as we get older, it's sort of knocked out of us by adults, right? Who tell us, like, don't get ideas above your station. Don't stretch too far, because if you fail, people are going to laugh at you and it's going to hurt. So don't do that. So we're conditioned to settle for average, right? When we're in schools, we're taught to memorize information so we can pass an exam. We're not taught to learn what it is that's going to help us to grow and develop and do what we want to do in life, what we're passionate about, right?
Exactly.
That's a challenge.
Mhm.
We now, you know, for a number of years, not when I was at school, we would get like an award for coming first, maybe a second and third prize. Now everybody gets a participation trophy.
Yep.
So we settle in for average. We're
Right.
not encouraging overachievers.
Right. I
Right?
actually say that, this makes us another sign of wanting to stay in our comfort zone. And let's face it, it's called the comfort zone for a reason. It's
Right.
comfortable,
Comfortable.
right? However, and then, because of that, to stretch yourself outside of that comfort zone, it gets a little bit uncomfortable. But folks, that's where the growth happens.
Correct.
That's where the change happens. That's where great things can happen. So, as we sort of bring this in for a landing, I hope you join us for the next 10 weeks as we go through the 10 steps to freedom that Chris talks about in his book here. And like I said, go to Amazon, pick it up, go look for Chris J. Baker, 10 Steps to Freedom, your 10-step guide to living the life you deserve. And for today's sort of, I would say, throw out there to our listeners, do some serious consideration and thinking about what is your dream, and are you living that out right now? And if you're not, what steps do you need to take to start reaching for that dream that you have?
Yeah. And I'd say as well, you know, maybe think back to your past and think about a dream that you've had in the past that you gave up on, and why did you give up on it?
Yeah, that's a great
Right, because
question.
maybe
Yeah,
you can reignite that.
maybe you can.
It's never too late.
Nope. One of our mentors used to tell us, if you don't have enough belief in yourself, borrow my belief in you.
Right.
Chris and I believe in you.
Yeah.
And if there's any way that we can help you, please reach out to us. And also, for this was a little bit more personal growth oriented, which the next few podcasts are going to be. But don't forget, we have our 5-step profit growth formula available to retailers. We're really focusing on helping retailers right now because there's some not good things happening. I read an article the other day, again, in US, Chris, 1,200 Walgreens locations closing down over the next year. And in Canada, we had some staggering statistics here. In the month of June, we had about 46,000 businesses closed. So our 5-step profit growth formula can help you reignite your passion in your business, because we can help you start making money again, or increasing that bottom line profit, so you can live out some of your dreams that you have. So go to raiseyourbars.com, watch our short webinar, and reach out to us, and we'd be happy to do a profit assessment on your business. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you found value in this, please share it with family, friends, coworkers. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to our Raise Your Bars YouTube channel, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Raise Your Bars podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please consider sharing it with your family, friends, and coworkers. We would sincerely appreciate it.